Hello, everyone. We are back. Been a while since we got together for a round table, but we managed to capture Squirrel and we're streaming Jade in from a winter wonderland. I told everyone to suit up for the holidays. I think Jade outdone us this time, Squirrel.
I don't know. I got jingle tits, so like literal full Santa outfit. I just
Oh, people, you can raise them, but you can't give them manners.
Ayo, and I got Christmas nails.
Okay, so tonight we decided we would actually talk about a topic that I was asked to do a video about and I looked into doing, but I didn't think that the video would actually be as interesting as potentially pitching it here on Roundtable. Because this way we can all talk about it, we can all research it, we can all talk about the different points of view because they asked me to talk about this entity. But this entity is every bit as convoluted as the myth and the legend of Santa Claus. And that is, of course, Krampus or Krampus, the dark counterpart of Santa Claus, which probably is why he's as convoluted as Santa Claus. And nailing down who he is, his lore as an entity, is harder than most other entities. And everyone has questions about him. And for some reason, old Krampus is popular as all get out the last 10 years. The explosion of his myths and his legends are just wow. I honestly going to admit, ladies, I did hear this legend as a kid from my grandfather, but he didn't necessarily, I don't remember him using the name Krampus. We'll get to that. Anyways, with that said, have you guys had any research or understanding of this particular entity in the past?
I
Yeah.
I've had some, but that's because I minored in German and it's a semi-German tradition to have Krampus. I mean, it's more like Alps and like Austrian than truly German, but there is a
Right.
German variant called the Belschnickel. So like kind of, but
Yeah.
not quite fully Krampus.
Right. Right. And it's interesting because the Belschnickel actually do attach themselves to another entity that is, um, if I remember correctly, she gives gifts, but she also does punish naughty children.
Hmm.
And her little minions are beautiful or ugly and counterparts. But and the minions, if I recall correctly, are referred to in some variant of the word Belschnickel.
Yep.
But it's interesting because even though she had that darker side, um, the pretty ones, they would give blessings while the ugly ones ran away scary things, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, that's what the Belschnickel run was, essentially people dressing up as these things running through trying. Basically, it was Halloween and Christmas. How
Hell
we dress
yeah.
up to run away spirits, they're dressing up to run away the Belschnickel spirits. Which,
That's my
why
kind of
did we stop
Christmas.
this? Why did we stop this? We're always saying we want 2 Halloweens. Well, Belschnickel away. Um, so there's that. And you see a lot of correlations between the Krampus design and artwork as well as the Belschnickels, which I personally found interesting. Miss Blizzard, Mrs. Claus down there. Thoughts, concerns?
Comments or
I mean,
complaints?
I honestly, under my research, found him to be quite fascinating because, I mean, as many of us know in like the metaphysical world, there's always a balance with everything, and focusing on just like, let's say, Santa Claus only gives gifts to good children. Now, in some traditions, they say Santa Claus does the coal in the stockings for bad children, but there's, Krampus is a true counterpart to his giving gifts to good children. I mean, Krampus they talk about him getting like birch rods and stuff like that, and punishing the children for being bad throughout the year. And there's actually several things that I read on where families would actually get birch rods and put them on the walls in their house as almost like a reminder that you need to be good throughout the year. Otherwise,
Yeah, like
Krampus
the
is
original
gonna come
Elf on the
get you.
Shelf. Yeah, yeah, that
Uh-huh.
is true. Actually, before we got on here, I mentioned I heard about it, and the way I actually heard about it originally was from one of my grandfather's siblings. It was like that one I don't really get to talk to that much, or didn't want to be honest with you. But they mentioned, you got to behave, or Saint Nicholas's brother's going to switch your hiney come Christmas night instead of getting toys. Now me being the smart aleck I was like, my grandfather had a switch 24/7 on the fridge. It's like, how's this change it from any other day of the week for me? By the way, that did not float well at all that particular day. I always had a mouth on me, which is probably why my grandfather always had a switch. So fair's fair. Anyhow, but I will say from some of the darker, scarier, more morbid legends of Krampus, they've thrown that out at me. That might have changed the deck a little bit more. But I have found this an interesting entity. Now, the coal, Krampus or Santa, I've always found the coal interesting because I actually come from a family where I literally remember us putting our coal burning furnace in the house because till then we didn't have heating.
Mm-hmm.
So I understood the value of coal in winter. So getting coal as a punishment to me was like, how's that a punishment?
Oh darn, I get to be warm this winter.
Yeah, it's like, and what's more, Santa's bringing it in the house for me. So instead of having to walk down to the coal pile and hike it up there myself in the freezing cold, he's bringing it in warm and dry, ready to go for me. It's like, that's kind of a win, you know? So, but until later, I realized it was, basically the viewpoint was instead of toys and extras for being good and working hard, that basically it's like, here, you get more needs and sufficiencies and stuff like that because you were lazy or you're being a brat.
Mm-hmm.
So, but but I was actually, like you mentioned, the Beschnickel run.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in Austria. They still do Krampus runs.
Correct. They're in Swiss Alps.
Yeah, and they have their own version of Krampus caroling and Krampus wassailing,
which is interesting.
It is.
That is not what I would associate with the Christmas demon myself.
Right, but at the same time, during the Krampus runs, you got people who dress up and they basically get to act like little buttholes to people around the streets because it's part of the tradition. It's like, if this is not a therapeutic way to deal with holiday crap, I don't know what is. Again, why are we not doing this? Secondly, and this is the one I like, you dress up, you knock on the door, and it's like, Krampus is here. Give me the brandy.
Give me the brandy.
And that's actually funny because there was several things that I've seen where people actually offer him schnapps.
Right, schnapps and brandy. Those are the two things that
they're supposed to keep him away or keep him from hurting you if he comes to your door.
Okay, I'm down for this because you know what you just told me? Cosplay for booze. I don't want to go caroling. I sing like a dying cat. But cosplaying for some hooch, I could get down for.
Mm-hmm.
I could. I like brandy. I like schnapps. And if we can include rum into that list, whoo! Ace votes for the rum. So I mean, these but at the same time, I see the correlation between these traditions and some of the more modern ones, like wassailing. Most people, I mean, I talked about this in our wassail video that we have on the channel. If you go check it out if you haven't, because wassail was a potent alcoholic punch, warmed. And the whole concept of this tradition, again, one I love, is everybody was like, Keller, how do you spell that word?
Hello.
The singers. I
Hello.
can't
It's
say it today.
me.
Oh, carolers.
That's the word. Thank you. I'm even sober. I need rum. That's the problem. I'm sober. That is the problem. Everybody's like, they're so sweet. And I'm just like, they're annoying. And then I look and I actually start learning about traditions, and it's like, oh my God, they're supposed to be. The whole thing. I mean, if you listen to the song about Wassailing We Come, the tradition was they would sit there and sing, and you would have to give them a donation and wassail. That's why it was called A Wassailing We Come, or they wouldn't go away.
And we wish you a Merry Christmas. Now give us some figgy pudding. Now
Yeah.
give us some figgy
So-
pudding. Or we'll sit here on
It's
your
like, so we're
doorstep
gonna
and
sit here
annoy
and
you
annoy
all
you until
night.
you give us booze. Again, another tradition I could get behind. Because
I'm
when
not
I made
actually
my
sure what
first
figgy
batch
pudding
of
is, though.
wassail, that stuff is good. We're talking winter ales and hard ciders and spices. I mean, oh, it's good stuff. They didn't have that. They didn't have that. And so you see this, the wassailing tradition right up here with the knock, knock, Krampus is here. Now,
Yeah.
grant you, I'd rather cosplay for my booze over singing. I really would. Give me the two choices. I'm going to choose cosplay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I also, like you mentioned, Jade, on the balance, as a Dragon Magic practitioner, somebody who in Dragon Magic, the balance is everything. And there's always a silver lining to every lesson, whether it be a good, happy lesson or a hard lesson. And when we look at the spirit of Santa, the spirit of St. Nicholas, all the many potentially iterations of what inspired Christmas spirit, Santa as we know it today, whatever you want to call it, it's been very hardcore driven into, look, you behave, look, we're bringing you some joy. The balance in it was always a little bit lost, except for the occasional, you're going to get some coal in your stock. So seeing a entity or a mythology about the shadow of St. Nicholas, which I also like, because in physics we talk about the shadow and shadow work. I was truly fascinated by that, because we are seeing a side of Christmas where there is a downside. There is, were you a bully? Were you a little turd? Were you a brat? Were you standing on your chair in the restaurant? By the way, if your kids do that and you're the parent, you don't do nothing, you ruined my dinner. We all know the kids I'm talking about. There is a downside. There is a consequence. There is a lesson to be learned, which this day and age, we just don't see it. Like I mentioned a switch. Okay. That was normal. That was not harsh. That was standard. That was a merciful punishment. A little switch on the booty. Mention that today.
Oh no.
Kids get away with murder these days. So having a mythology, a story, the original Elf on the Shelf, if you will, to get kids to behave, to get to learn manners and stuff. I think there's something solid there. I mean, for honestly, Krampus could literally have just been parents pulling their hair out like, all right, that's it. Let's make an evil Santa so they'll behave.
Yeah. And there's been several, I guess, theories that some people had, which was Krampus is actually a part of Santa Claus, but like what you're saying, like his shadow side, his darker side. because actually the meaning of Krampus is actually claw. And so it really kind of ties in that whole Santa Claus kind of thing.
This Santa got claws. Wow.
Got claws. And so there's several
scary.
people who believe that Krampus is actually just a different part of Santa Claus himself that kind of scares children into being good.
Yeah. Which
and he is pretty terrifying because I mean you see the descriptions of it. I mean, he's like a goat-like man with like a long ass tongue. Oops, excuse my French.
It's all right.
With
nice round table.
like,
Me and Halloween just kicked. You're allowed one after last time. Me and Halloween just seriously.
And he's got fangs. He's super hairy. He's got horns. Some variations of him, he's like carrying around chains with him.
Yep.
Some even say that he carries bells with him, which is interesting too.
Yeah.
The bells are so you hear him coming, I believe.
Yeah, that's supposed to be the concept. And I've actually found the symbolism pretty cool because in Norse, I mean, Odin gets Santa's job. Many people actually believe Slafnir has 8 legs, and that's where we get the 8 reindeers from. And after the wild hunt, on his return, Odin would bring gifts for the hard workers, the well-behaved and the honorable. Again, that work. It's not just about being good. You got to get out there and get a job. Go Odin. And they would actually leave grain or in the boots for Slafnir even. So we're seeing that stocking story a little bit there.
Yeah.
But we all know Odin's not Mr. Cheerful and Jolly 24/7. So if you were lazy, he would actually tend to leave you things that would lead to more work or labor and get your gear, coal, tools, as opposed to toys and the likes. So you have one entity where you're seeing that. I mean, we know Odin had that duality.
Yeah.
So you see that, but then we get to an entity like Santa, where how do you show the duality while still having this jolly, just amazing guy? Well, you create Krampus. And that is a possibility. I also, like Halloween said, I love a lot of the myth around the bells and the chains because there are a lot of different ones. The ones I love is the chains is the weight of the guilt, which we see this in Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol.
Yes.
You know, Marley, his chains. And, and of course, that which we did wrong and that which we fear, we always present. Hence the clanging of the chains and the bells. It can't sneak past. You're made aware of it. I don't even want to ask Halloween. Stop.
They're chains.
Oh.
I mean, it's a belt full of chains, but it's chains.
Okay, it's a belt. Okay.
Okay, cut it out. Go back to the bells. I have my Krampus together. I am Santa and Krampus in one.
You broke Jade. Jade's mind. I know where Jade's mind went. We're getting flagged. Okay. So,
if we're already getting flagged, can I bring out the fire?
No. I actually have to say I do love the symbolism behind this entity. And I mean, we attempted to say we'd keep this a bit more family friendly. Squirrel's definitely challenging that. And there are definitely darker sides of Krampus that if people are interested in, I would encourage because it is a fascinating myth and legend. And watching how it's changed by culture or area and through time, that's one of the things I love about myth is you can actually see how the people and the times shifted and changed with it. Now, one question I do get, and I want to present to you ladies, and get your 2 cents in your research on, is Krampus a real entity? Or is he an ideal? Is he an egregore, a thought form? Or is he perhaps, much like many theorize with Santa, many, many entities all taking part in the same myth?
Oh, that is a tough one.
Because I thought possibly, like, what if, because like Santa Claus and then Saint Nicholas is supposed to be like half elf, half man. And then if he's Odin and the winter, you might align him with, like, say, a winter court. So
Mhm.
would this be like the summer court alternative, which usually you think summer court or Seelie court is being like the prettier fae, but they can still have the darker aspect. And
Mhm.
like the king of the summer court is the horned god or the
That's a
Earthling.
very good point. Usually
And this guy has horns.
he does. He pulls from that very fey, pagan, horned deity, satyr like appearances, definitely.
So
Mhm.
what if it's the balance there?
It's an interesting question.
That is a very excellent theory, Halloween. I like that.
That is
Which
a cool.
would make him a real entity. Just like how Odin or the Winter King might be separate entities taking on this role, he could be the same.
Hmm.
Could be interesting. Yeah.
Sorry if you hear my cats crashing through the background.
Honestly, since there's so many iterations of Krampus throughout the world, I feel like there is some validity to his existence because it's not isolated to just one spot. I mean, the stories dated back originate in one area, but you see over time the stories of Krampus or his variations spread.
Right.
So I feel like there is some validity to it. There might be some possibility of him being more of like a thought or a thought form in a way because so many people believe in his existence. But I think there might be some meat to that.
Yeah. I'll admit I didn't think of the Fae line to consider, which I like that personally. I'm actually personally, in my research of different holidays and entities, I'm actually sitting in the fact that he's definitely multiple entities dealing with the dark side of winter celebration.
Mm-hmm.
And that essentially does make him a real entity, even if it's multiple. And I do think a good, so many different cultures have shown the dark side of the celebratory season. And I think that is an important aspect
Mm-hmm.
because joy, happiness, peace, these things mean nothing if you don't have the opposite. So, and I mean, we made the, misbehaving children jokes and consequences of actions, but that is just it. I mean, we got to remember, morally speaking, humans are going to do what they can get away with. 90% of the time, we're not going to do what's right just because.
Mm-hmm.
If you leave us to it, there has to be some morals or values or something that we're taught to say, don't do that. And I kind of see that with Krampus because I know growing up, there was a definite holiday reward versus you've been a dick, to put it mildly. And as god awful as me and my siblings could be, hands down, come Christmas, we all behaved a little extra special, just a little better. We even tried to be nicer to each other. And that, weirdly, knowing the dark side of the celebration really helped me learn and truly appreciate what most people view as the meaning of the celebration. So I would agree that that's a thing. And I do think I'm with you all in that I do think it's an entity. Is it a singular one? I'm a little out on that. I'm actually
Mhm.
considering between now and next Yule, maybe doing some evocation work and taking some notes, and might drag you all in on that a little bit for a part 2 roundtable next year.
That sounds like a fun activity.
Yeah.
I'd totally be down for that.
And I'm
Compare
gonna be
comparison.
trying to work with the summer court this coming year.
Oh, that's
Um,
true. So you might be able to
so
get
I
some
could always
insider
pick
notes.
on the Erkling and see if he'll give me
Don't
information.
don't pick on him. Don't.
Not like that. Like he's he would beat me to a pulp, and we all know it.
Yes, very much so. So yeah. So next, and we'll start with you, Jade, because you're trying to hide down there on us. With your bright lights shining. What is your
Oh no! The elf on the
favorite?
shelf is gone.
Somebody threw water on her. I knew she was a witch. Um, we now know how much Jade weighs, the same as a duck. All right. What is your favorite part of this myth and legend?
My favorite part, honestly, and this is, I don't know if this is weird at all, but it shows that there is a darker side to the holiday season. Not everything is light and bright and happy. There has to be the darker side too to balance out the light. And I like that that Krampus has that darker side.
It actually brings me to an interesting part of that myth. Go on, though.
Because I mean, even nowadays, like you hear in most modern areas, they focus solely on Santa Claus and the good and everything like that. And everybody tries to forget about the bad, but we always have to remember that there is that darker side. And I think that's what makes me like Krampus the most.
Yeah, you see that. Squirrel.
So like obviously I grew up watching The Grinch, specifically the Jim Carrey version, which is the best version. So like having him as a dark aspect of Christmas helped me attach to like Krampus, and then like with learning German, minoring in German, it helped me collect to that. But I also found it interesting in my research. I found out that the not so nice party in Germany circa 1930s through 40s
Gotcha.
hated Krampus with a burning passion and banned all of his celebrations through the countries they conquered. And once like the party was defeated, Krampus came back. And then when it spiked in pop culture circa 2006, when it was written into a song and then a Christmas TV show, bringing back that dark aspect of Christmas again was just, I don't know, I think it's really cool. Also, it's always great to love things that the not so nice party hated. So,
Agreed.
red lipstick and Krampus in tow. Let's get it.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good point too. Good one. So, first, the point Jade made about the dark side of winter. I noticed very specifically a lot of the lore around Krampus is how to keep him out of your house,
Mm-hmm.
how to avoid getting on his bad side. Well, if you think about it, way back in the by and by, during winter, you wanted to keep all the family inside. You wanted to keep all the good food inside. You wanted to keep the heat inside, that warm and coziness. And you wanted to close and keep all the bitter, harsh, dark, cold winter out. So I think there may even be a bit of a correlation in the very mentality of survival at that point. Now, to Halloween's, where she was talking about the banning of it. Yeah, I agree because first off, if you're not so locked in that manner, I don't think you would really want people to celebrate something that points out people doing bad stuff and not being nice, and actually showing there's consequences for being a douche. And I think that's actually pretty important because that tends to point out they knew what they were doing wasn't so nice. You always got to find it interesting when people start banning traditions like that. I would say pay attention. Always. And she is right. He made a big comeback. Big comeback. And, you know, you mentioned the pop culture surge. Jade, you probably noticed it too, but there was a point where the focus on Christmas was family. It was friends. It was loved ones. It was spending that time together. We were enjoying that. That was what we were attempting to do. Success or failure, that was our attempt. And though often meaning well, let's be honest, Christmas, the holiday, whatever you want to call it, came under attack. And in the process of what I honestly do think was well meant concepts and ideals to, you shouldn't do this, you should do this, you shouldn't do this. That connection to family, that connection to your fellow man, your community, you know, that core behind all the different celebrations got diluted and lost.
Yeah.
But as that happened, you see more and more people doing more and more research, more and more people asking questions, more and more people, you know, diving into lore. Why was this a thing? Where did this come from? What was the meaning of this originally? And then who pops up suddenly? Krampus. And in his wake, guess what we have seen? Those arguments, those fights, that bullshit is now on the decline. It didn't disappear overnight, people. We're still there. But even my grumpy patootie has to admit it is on a decline. And that decline really does match up with the time you start seeing his myths and legends resurge. Could this be coincidence? Absolutely. But I do find it fascinating that the dark side of winter, the dark side of Christmas, the dark side of the holiday is also the biggest mirror that reminds us what is so important.
Oh, that just gave me chills. I like that.
Yeah.
See? And even without any rum.
And his heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Now, let's not go too.
How about like a size and a half? Like, did you just like gain an inch?
We'll see. I don't want people thinking I ain't an old Scrooge.
Bah, humbug.
And you know, you mentioned the Grinch actually, which ironically is it wasn't Christmas till I seen the Grinch, even as a kid.
It's the Grinch and Die Hard.
That and Die Hard, you are correct. Die Hard's one of my Christmas movies. So is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. But during my research of this and diving into it, and I've seen it before when I've looked at Krampus, I can't help but see the correlation between the Grinch and Krampus. I can't. It's just it's too big. And if you, when I think about it, the Grinch did the same thing. I mean, his antics, was he mean? Oh, he was mean as snot. But he took away all the trivial BS. That's what he stole, was the trivial BS that meant nothing. Stripped it away and left a wide open view of, look, we can still sit around the tree and sing. Because you still had the family. You still had your neighbors. You still had the things that really mattered. And looking at the Krampus legends, I know you got those drastically darker ones. Okay. And I would even argue those themselves, again, point out what's important. It's that family unit. All right, you know what? Let's do it because Halloween's already goes with Jingle Boobs. I shouldn't have. Anywho, there is in some of the myths where he doesn't just leave coal; he kills you.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
was actually several myths of him having a basket on his back and actually taking away people who are just downright evil.
Yeah, and I'm not doing this to scare anyone, and my channel's not for kids, so adults, I'm sure we're all adulty enough, hopefully, to understand this conversation. I hope so, because Squirrel over here is definitely causing issues tonight. But if you look at that, I would say mythologically, the mentality there is focusing on the family, because what do you do if you lose it? You know? I mean, Jade, as a mother, I guarantee you, I can easily guess one of your greatest nightmares.
Yep.
Um,
that thought is just unfathomable for me.
exactly. I won't voice it, but so I would even say, even on his darkest of myths, we're still in the same point of a reminder of what is truly important. And I know it's kind of a morbidly way of getting there, but I think that's beautiful. Because sometimes you have knuckleheads that are stubborn, like me.
Hit me.
They need that harsh reality to remind them. You know? And I know I could be a little old fashioned on this, but especially in the technological world where it's so easy to just disconnect and forget there's 15 other people sitting in the family living room with you, and you're just still in your same world that you're in on your little video game or your, well, VR headsets now. Doing your thing just like every other day of the year. But what happens if you turn that game off or take that headset off and no one's there?
Yeah. It's unfortunate, and you see it getting worse and worse as more technology comes around. People are stuck plugged into their electronics. And honestly, that's one of the many reasons why when I'm visiting family, all electronics go away.
Proud of you for that.
All of them.
You know? And
I even hold myself accountable for that too. My phone goes bye-bye.
good on you. Good on you. I actually try to keep my phone away too for that same reason. But you know, it's interesting because everybody thinks about Krampus as a new pop culture character that comes from old myth, and then there's a huge gap where it's just like these concepts weren't there. I would beg to differ. First off, I grew up on the Crypt Keeper. We saw some bad killer Santas. Secondly, even if we don't go down the morbid line, you're too young to understand who the Crypt Keeper is. He was my babysitter on weekends. Great guy. Check him out. Let's look a little bit more what things people would point to as Christmas movies. First off, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. This movie was popular for two reasons. First off, it was funny. Secondly, it showed the world everyone's family's messed up. And family togetherness and time together and trying to work with that insanity is important. So there you got that family theme. And then Home Alone.
Yes.
You literally
That's a fantastic one.
where it opens with the person wishing they didn't have to deal with their family. and then they get it. And then the only thing they want is that annoying family back.
Mhm.
So,
And
I
you
would
get it
act-
on both sides. Like even his family who left him, once they realized he was gone, even though that entire movie they're like, or up till that point they're like, "What are you even doing here? You can't do anything."
Mhm.
And then they're like, "Ah, crap, Kevin."
Mhm.
Kevin.
Um, so I would argue that those themes, those ideals that Krampus teaches, have been there the whole time. I don't think he went anywhere.
Mm-mm. He may not have been celebrated as big through those times where he was suppressed, but he's always been there.
Him and the lessons that he truly brings to the holiday, which helps us to really see more clearly the meaning, those were there.
Do you guys also hear my neighbor's fire alarm? It's going.
No.
No, I don't hear it. For once, your mic ain't picking that up.
Oh,
Because your
they're
mic
okay.
usually picks up everything.
True.
Um, anyways, any closing thoughts on this? Because we're actually running a little long. I didn't think this one would be a long one, but as usual, we end up rambling.
Um,
What's
I
the
guess
question?
the closing thoughts would be other entities you can look for where they also match the Krampus thing.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Kemperl, Necht Ruprecht,
Yeah.
which I think is a funny name. Uh, Belschnickel, Teufel, Buttonmandel, which is another Belschnickel. It's
Okay.
from a completely different area of Germany, though. And then Perkthen, which is not a Krampus, but looks like a Krampus. And they're more like the Belschnickels, where there's the good ones and the bad ones.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
And I don't know, but like the fact that we have those other options on top of like the regular Krampus myths, on top of Santa, on top of Odin, on top of like all of this, like we can really round out Christmas more instead of just having, oh, it's Rudolph time, oh,
Yeah.
it's Santa time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, but it's interesting because as you do go down the two sides of it and round it out, you do see that common theme always,
It's
which
always comes back to the middle.
I think is very important. And I think instead of
Hmm.
arguing over which holiday greeting or what we call the holiday, I think that's far more important in the end.
Thank goodness Halloween you pronounced all those names because I would have completely butchered them.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Yeah.
6 years of German coming clutch for one video.
There
And
we
one
go.
video only. Do I use German in my
But
day-to-day
before I let
life?
Jade
No.
do her closing, you talking about different entities does bring up something I read that I found interesting, but I don't know how much water is in this bucket. There is at least one place where people were talking that Krampus is the son of Hel,
Saw
aka
that.
the daughter of Loki. Um, Pros Edis and Edis, I can't find anything to back this up in any shape, form, or fashion. And every reference that I've been able to track down of this mention was after the year 2000. So this sorta, kinda, to me, does feel like they took this legend and we know heathenry and Norse practice is a reconstruction. We don't really have a lot to go on. So not dogging this in any way. But to this, it does feel like they kind of pulled it over here as a part of their tradition and their beliefs. Being that there is that Germanic influence upon this entity, definitely. Um, but hear me out. I also don't hate the idea.
Hmm.
Because let's look at Hell, who is literally an entity of the balance, the light and the dark. Much like the other entity, I can't remember her name, but the one who had the Belschnickels, where she had the beautiful gift giver and
Frau Perktha or
yes, that's it.
Perkta, something like that.
Um, and then she had the ugly, more punishing side.
Yeah.
So And
The
perhaps
Christmas witch.
they're viewing her as hell. Perhaps that's where the connection to hell's coming from. I don't claim to know. But I did think that was an interesting thing that some people are doing with their particular practice. And might be worth meditating on and going into and looking at if you work with hell or work with the Norse or some branch of heathenry. So, and thank you for pronouncing that name again, Halloween.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what she was called.
Yeah.
But yeah, because then hers were the Shon and the Shaich.
Yeah, it sounds right.
Yeah, one's good, and then the other, I'm assuming, is a different dialect for bad. Because that's not how I learned the word bad in German, but it's similar-ish. Schön means pretty, or good, or beautiful, depending on the context.
All right.
So, the pretty ones that chase out the evil spirits and bring you good luck, and then the bad ones are baby Krampuses.
Jade, your thoughts?
I don't know. I honestly wish there was more people who talked about Krampus and read into him because, you know, just to sum up like everything we talked about, he really brings back those ideals of, family and morality and all those things. And although there's terrifying stories of him, there's a deeper meaning behind him. And I don't think he gets enough credit for
True.
what he actually does.
To our evocation project, perhaps we should add, since I mean at this point we function like a dysfunctional family, or maybe a functional family, depending on how you view it. Maybe we should actually try to find ways that here at Working Dragon Mystic we can celebrate both the Santa side and the Krampus side and make it part of the normal traditions. And next year try to share those ideals as part of the holiday videos.
That could be cool. Krampusnacht and Belschnickelnacht are the same night. They are December 5th. St. Nicholas Day is December 6th.
Right.
Then obviously Christmas is Christmas. And Yule is Yule.
And you'll
So we have 2 and 2.
have to and do. Yeah, that's true. And then you also have the 12 days of Christmas.
The 12 days of Christmas lead to Epiphany, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
Or Three Kings
There's
Day.
so
I think it's called
many
Epiphany.
amazingly interesting traditions this time of year. So, but I mean, there could be something for us to do there and try and bring that celebration back to the modern people. Would be definitely an interesting concept, Jade. Not a bad one at all. And I mean, again, as a Dragon Magic practitioner, that balance is important. And I actually have to wonder if, perhaps sitting back and asking the dragons of their viewpoints on this would be an interesting spin to bring into it next year. Because they do deal with the balance of the season for sure. So yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yep.
So,
Excellent roundtable tonight.
it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. So you having the ability to make noise while you move is just a bad idea. Because you don't sit still half the time. So
I could just be Tinkerbell.
no one's gonna clap, right?
Hmm?
No one's gonna clap, right?
Jade would clap for me. You'd be like, go to sleep, Halloween. It's 3 in the morning, and Jade'd be over on the other side of the country, like, keep going. I see you.
Well, luckily, I know Jade's batteries run out before yours.
That's true.
So
That's the price of having children.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else y'all want to say before we go and close off for the holiday? I think this might be our last round table of the year, maybe, unless we have an epiphany of an ideal.
I don't know. Happy holidays, everybody, whatever holiday you celebrate.
Yeah. Happy holidays. I do for after this. We could also look into if we have time for another before the end of the year. So obviously
Okay.
no promises.
Okay.
The Christmas, I think it's called Leard or something like that from Iceland, which is a horse skull on a stick that sings.
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
And I'm pretty sure where we get Christmas caroling from. Before or right around the time of wassailing.
Yeah. It
So-
might be. Might be.
Another Christmas entity, even if it's just for next year.
Yeah.
Who's non-Krampus, but still fun.
We could look into possibly doing a roundtable on that this year, maybe, if you ladies feel you have the time. Also, not
Oh,
really related to either, but has anybody but me noticed how much booze ties into the holidays ever since when?
Yes, and yes, always yes.
I mean, it's like, growing up, there were the jokes. How do you get through the holidays? Well, I had a lot of help from Jack Daniels. And, we're thinking families are just messed up now. They used to love each other. But then you look back and you're like, I'm thinking they got along better because there was alcohol.
Hmm.
Even the kids were drinking. There might be something here. Wisdom of the ancients, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, I'm not someone who drinks a lot. I will admit, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying let's all turn to alcoholics, but I am really actually amazed at how core to these celebrations alcohol is. And I won't lie, I think next year I might have to do a video on alcohol traditions just cause. And we might even have to do a roundtable. Maybe give Squirrel a hot butter rum while we're on stream to see what happens.
Ooh.
I'm pretty sure you've both seen me drunk. That takes exactly 2 drinks to get me too drunk. Do you
People,
really
she's
want
lying.
to
It
try
doesn't
that?
take 2 real drinks. It takes 2 sips of fizzy wine.
Yeah, it does take 2 fizzy wines to get me drunk. I don't know what a real drink would do. Probably like 1.5.
So I'll admit it's kind of a curiosity of me about why those are there, why those traditions. I think it would be an interesting topic to explore.
Absolutely. I love all of them.
So I think we got a busy holiday next year.
Hmm.
We just got to start the season earlier, but not earlier than Thanksgiving.
I actually had a thought on that I'll share off camera with you all. Okay.
All right.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, before we do go, Jade, I'm going to double check the calendar here. Yep. So when this video releases,
Me with my elf ear.
when this video is live, you people should be able to go to Working Dragon Mystic and find not only our wassail recipe, but Jade did eggnog. So it should already be live by the time you all are seeing this. Because at the time of recording, it's our next video coming out.
Mhm.
And we're talking the real eggnog, people. And for people who don't like eggnog, trust me, homemade eggnog is nothing even remotely similar to what you buy in the store.
It was so delicious.
It's better the next day, ain't it? When it mellows.
Mhm.
And... Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Sitting in the fridge for 24 hours. Oh my gosh. Mm.
It's a little harder to make, but there's actually something called aged eggnog that actually gets better the longer it's in the fridge.
Ah.
The downside with it is, how do you keep it in the fridge that long? Because you're going to want to drink it.
Yeah.
Self-control.
I do have to say
I don't have
that
that.
eggnog did not last more than 2 days.
Yeah.
What if you just make like a vat? Like not like a drink, not a pitcher.
Ask your
Vat.
mom what happens when she makes so many cookies that I can't eat them.
Because with
There's a
my
phrase
bio
for it.
mom,
It's
we used to
called
make 12 dozen
challenge
cookies every year for
accepted.
Christmas and we never brought any home.
So there's certain things like I will get rid of it. I will. I keep telling myself I'm going to do the aged eggnog thing, and I'm going to have it in there for like a month or 2 months or 3 months before the holidays, and then just have eggnog supply. But ain't happened yet.
You open the fridge door and it calls your name.
It's like Drake, eggnoggy goodness. It's
Get
been a
boozy with it.
stressful day.
Oh, wow. Get boozy with it.
Cuddle up on the couch with a good, cold, tall eggnog. And I'm like, okay. What can I say? I do have my weaknesses I need to work on. All right. So, everyone, thank you for joining this definitely insane holiday special. This might have been one of our weirder ones yet, even though the topic was a lot of fun. And ladies, thank you for doing Krampus and the discussion on this. I do appreciate it. I know a lot of viewers have been interested about it, and hopefully this will inspire them to dive in and do a bit of research on Krampus as well and get them kickstarted. And until next time, everyone, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Bye.
Bye.